Morning, ladies and gents. It's a surprisingly slow day on the BBC website regarding the state of the war in Israel. I wonder why. This was the only story of any real import I could find. Bowen. Al-Shifa hospital raid comes as tone shifts on Israel. Now, first of all, you might be thinking, Bowen. The fact that the name dropped him in the title suggests he must be some visionary world leader, a foreign statesman or dignitary, perhaps a president or a prime minister. Well, no. Bowen is Jeremy Bowen, the BBC international editor. So to get that headline, they're quoting themselves. That's like your mum telling you that you're the most handsome boy in the world and you actually believe in the silly old bat. I'll tell you who I'd rather trust as a reliable source of news than Jeremy Bowen. Jim Bowen.
A favourite musical work of King George I was the Water Music. Who was the German composer?
Handel.
Handel is right. You'd have thought, being a Jerry, you'd have called it chamber music. Absolutely right. £280 playing 390.
And hats off to him for sneaking in a Holocaust joke on daytime TV in 1976 there. Okay, before I read you this story, I'm going to show you a couple of videos demonstrating why the duplicitous, self-serving rat bastards that work at the BBC have made Mr. Bowen's dog toffee story the order of the day. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they didn't want to mention this story.
This moment, we are hearing from Reuters that is reporting that Israel, it says its forces are carrying out an operation against Hamas in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital, and they are targeting people, including medical teams as well as Arab speakers. They are also saying that Israel is calling on all Hamas operatives in the hospital to surrender at this point.
Yes, that was indeed the BBC telling the world that Israeli soldiers were purposely targeting medical teams and Arabic speakers. Bear in mind, this is a country, the only one in the region, that has an ethnic mix in parliament, including Arabs and Arabic speakers, and has been sending medical supplies to designated safe zones and setting up medical tents for injured civilians, something that Hamas couldn't give a monkey's fart about because they're all about this propaganda war, painting themselves as the good guys, even though they were on video machine gunning hippies at a music festival. And again, damn you Hamas for making me defend hippies. And also dancing on the corpses of rape victims. I mean, call me a bluff old traditionalist. I assume it doesn't really get much worse than that. But you've already seen the footage, so I'm not going to bore you with it ever again.
And now an apology from the BBC. BBC News, as it covered initial reports that Israeli forces has entered Gaza's main hospital. We said that medical teams and Arab speakers were being targeted. This was incorrect and misquoted a Reuters report. We should have said IDF forces included medical teams and Arabic speakers for this operation. So we apologise for this error, which fell below our usual editorial standards.
It's even more egregious when the actual story was that they took Arabic speakers and medical personnel with them to render aid to civilians around the area. Anyway, out of morbid curiosity, let's read the BBC's version by legendary reporter Jeremy couldn't find his own arse with a map. Boyd. Al-Shifa is the main hospital in Gaza. I've been there many times. It's got big grounds, so people went there to seek shelter and camp out as they saw it as a safe area. A safe area with 300 Hamas fighters under it and 40 tons of high explosives. It has now become a symbol of the juxtaposition of war, the Israeli invasion of Gaza inflicting masses of casualties and damage, set against the crisis of urgent humanitarian need. Because on the 7th of October, Hamas randomly decided to rinse a few thousand civilians for no reason. The Israelis have made a big point about saying that they are going after the Hamas military command and have brought in fuel and incubators because there was concerning claims that premature babies had to be taken out of them. However, the issue isn't a lack of incubators, it's a lack of fuel. And you just said they brought fuel, so read your own shite, Jezza. Israel says Hamas has stockpiles of its own and that it should use the fuel for the generators supplying the hospital electrical system, which suggests to me that they've got plenty of fuel. They're just letting the hospital go to ratchet because the people that are in command of Hamas know that it will look good for them. They have always been willing to sacrifice Palestinian civilians for their glorious cause. Everybody knows it. They've been radicals for decades. And they always kill their own people. They killed their predecessors, didn't they? Think about it. At the same time, we've seen a hardening of the international position around the Israeli offensive in the last few days, with the US, UK and France using language that is shifting the tone. I haven't seen that. Seems like wishful thinking to me, that. Jezza? Is everybody called Jeremy a communist in the UK? Is that how it works? I have seen some estimates that suggest the Israeli Defence Force will continue to work in this way for a couple more weeks, but I think the forces are gathering amongst their allies to say you need to change the nature of your military operation. It's bollocks. It's just more nonsense from the BBC. They published videos telling lies about Israel, claiming that they were murdering nurses and doctors on purpose, and then followed it with this puff piece saying that the international community is desperate for the Israelis to stop. It's nonsense. It's wishful thinking from the filthy, lying, commie propagandists that work at the BBC, who, for reasons unknown to me, flip-flopped on the Israel-Palestine debate in the 80s and the 90s, and went from being pro-Israel to massively pro-religion of many, many pieces. Personally, I don't much care for either side in that conflict, but only one side supported the people that lopped Lee Rigby's napper off in the middle of London, spattered Safi up against the side of the walls of the Manchester Evening News Arena, and then proceeded to somehow find a way to make London buses and trains run even worse than usual by blowing them up when they were full of women and kids. So you can remain completely ambivalent if you want, but at this point I think I'm leaning towards the fellas with the daft hats rather than the fellas that have a penchant for removing people's swedes and buggering up the public transport system in Britain. Alright, that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think of that video. I think it's disgraceful, and I could forgive the IDF for possibly dropping a couple of bunker busters on Broadcasting House at this point. But that's just what I think. If you find yourself pro-Hamas for some reason, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know how a red-blooded Englishman comes to that point of view. But it seems like quite a few people do. Alright? Hope you enjoyed that. See you all very soon. Toodle pip.